Welcome back to Jay Fuller Interviews. Jay Fuller Interviews on YouTube, Instagram, the Facebook group, and Twitter, Jay Fuller Interviews. You can certainly subscribe at Jay Fuller Interviews on YouTube. We just encourage you to do so. And now the Backfire Podcast on Spotify. You can look that up, the Backfire Podcast on Spotify. We're talking sports, talking all things you're interested in, because that's where I believe people's stories make your stories much better. So let's feature them. And so joining me now is Rex Walters. Rex, so good to have you on.
Thanks. No, thank you for having me.
And so I graduated high school in 1993. You were finishing up playing Kansas at Kansas in 93. What is it about basketball that you've grown to love and even make a career of?
Yeah, I always say I've never worked a day in my life. I'm 50 years old now, and basketball has been very, very good to me. Love the game, always did from a young age. I grew up watching my brother play. My father was my first coach at I want to say fourth grade, maybe third grade, and had a hoop in front of my garage door and shot on it every day, and was lucky enough to get my education paid for, was lucky enough to be an NBA player for 7 years, play overseas for a couple of years, about 10 years total, and then got right into coaching. And so it's the best game in the world to me. It takes all the different things of athleticism, but also more importantly, the mental part of it, I think is so important, and how to get the best out of your teammates, how to push yourself to be the best that you can be. And then as I got into coaching, game planning and scouting and all those type of things, I've always enjoyed it. Still to this day, I'm not working anywhere right now, but still watch a lot of basketball, whether it be on video, on the internet. Thank goodness tomorrow we'll get the startup, the restart going again, and I'll watch a lot of basketball, and just continue to try to learn and get better and figure out if there's a way, because I'll be coaching somebody. I don't know who, but I'll be coaching somebody when it comes to basketball.
Well, I want to get to that in a little bit, but I want to go back for a moment. Rock Chalk Jayhawk. What does that mean? Where does that come from? I have some Kansas fans. They just shout it all the time, and I'm like, it sounds cool, but what does it mean?
Well, in Kansas, Kansas was a free state. Back when we were going through the Civil War, and the Jayhawk was a mythical bird that was, the way I understood it, trying to stomp out racism, trying to stomp out slavery. So that's kind of what Rock Chalk means. So obviously, for someone like me, I thought that was really cool. Great logo, great mascot, and it stood for something. And even though it was a mythical bird, it stood for the right things. So anytime I see a Jayhawk or see someone wearing a Jayhawk shirt, I'll say Rock Chalk go KU to them, and sometimes I'll get that back.
Oh, that's a fact. That's really cool to know. Hey, so the Real Talk Basketball Podcast with yourself, I was listening as I was preparing for this. You had Jason Williams, former teammate, on, and I just thought it was a very fascinating interview. But when we're looking at 2020, the pandemic, you find yourself without a job right now. What motivates you just to stay focused and keep grinding along the way?
I love basketball. I love the player development side of it. I love watching what great teams are doing. I did about a 6-game study of the Milwaukee Bucks, the Toronto Raptors, and just trying to find ways to get better as a coach. I do want to coach again. I do want to be a head coach and run a program again at some level. And so the only way to do that is continue to get better. So when you do get that opportunity, you're ready for it. So, that's just really the approach I've taken. It's a bad time to not have a job. There's not a lot of jobs open, which for some people, that's a good thing. That means no one's losing their job. In our business, to get a job, someone has to lose a job, which is never fun. But when that opportunity presents itself, I want to be ready, and I want to take different things from, not only just watch other teams. I watch myself. I'm watching the 2013-14 team was the best team I ever had at USF, and watching what they did offensively, first of all, but then I'm going to really get into defense, because that was our best defensive team as well, and was able to win, 21 games to get to an NIT and have a chance to get to the NCAA tournament. So I just want to keep getting better. That's the way I've always approached it, whether I was a player and now as a coach. I want to find ways to make an impact, not just basketball wise, but for young people, whether it be at the college or pro level. help them achieve their goals, help them achieve their dreams.
Hey, so my extensive research featured a lot of Wikipedia searches, and I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it said that you were born in Nebraska, but you played high school basketball in California. How did that all work out?
Well, my father was in the service. So my father was in the Air Force. So I was born in Nebraska, but then we moved quickly to Hawaii, where he was working at Moffett Air Force Base. Then he started to work for Lockheed Missiles and Space. And then we moved to Aurora, Colorado, and then finally settled in California when I was in about the third grade, and was there all the way until I graduated from high school. And from there, I've moved all over the place. But that was the reason. My father was in the service. There's no grand scheme of this thing. He was following the job, and so after the Air Force, he worked for Lockheed Missiles and Space, and that's how we ended up settling in San Jose, California.
Hey, so talk about the recruiting process. For those that don't know, you did not spend all 4 years at Kansas, but you went to Northwestern. Being recruited in high school, what prepared you for that? Were you prepared for that process?
Well, there's no way to ever really prepare for it, especially, as a college recruiter myself. I always wanted to be really upfront and honest about everything, because I knew I was naturally at an advantage over a parent that has maybe 1 or 2 kids but have never gone through the recruiting process before. Unfortunately, a lot of coaches, they're going to tell kids what they want to hear. They're going to tell parents what they want to hear. But the cold, hard truth of it is college athletics is really hard. And at a place like Wake Forest, which academically is one of the top 30 schools in the nation. I was at San Francisco, which was a great education. Even at FAU when I was there, really good education. So I don't think they always understand how difficult it is. And I would tell guys from the get-go, and even players today that I still talk to, like, your freshman year, you want to survive. It's hard. You're going to be away from home. You're going to be away from family. But if you put in the time, you put in the effort, you take care of your academics, you put yourself in a position to be successful. Because I always said, I don't want you to find a job when you graduate. I want you to find something that you love to do.
Sure.
For the rest of your life, and that you can make a living doing it. So I tried that approach. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I just always felt to be upfront and honest. But I wasn't ready as a high school senior. My father, who's a very intelligent man, my mother, a very intelligent woman, we had no idea what we were doing when it came to the recruiting process. And now you have 10, 20 schools calling you. You're trying to figure out what's the truth, what's not. I ended up going to Northwestern, and they were very honest with me, very upfront. They said, hey, your freshman year is going to be really hard. Your sophomore you'll have a chance to play, and we want to really put ourselves in position to be a competitive team. At the end of my sophomore year, though, number one, I missed home. It's very cold in Chicago, Evanston, and I wanted to have a chance to play in the NCAA tournament, and I didn't know if that was going to happen at Northwestern. Great coaches, great people, great teammates that every once in a while I still stay in touch with. But it wasn't the right place for me. And at that time, I just decided, hey, I'm going to make a change. I was actually going to probably go back closer to home, be closer to my family. But I was really fortunate. Kansas was coming off some recruiting violations. They didn't have the ability to get out the way Coach Williams eventually started to, because he'd just taken over the job, and an opportunity presented itself, and I decided to take it.
So, Rex, I got to ask you, whether it's recruiting students now or what you did before or when you were in high school, how do you fight that temptation where they believe all the scouting reports or all the people in their ear, the AAU coaches, their family friends? How did you remain grounded, and how do you suggest students to remain grounded?
Well, as a recruiter, I tried to recruit kids that didn't have a lot of people in their circle. I didn't want to recruit the AAU coach, the AAU assistant coach, the high school coach, the high school assistant coaches, aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, mother, father, grandfather. Like, to me, I was like, it's going to be hard enough to coach this kid. When he gets here. If he's already listening to 10 people, there's no way we're going to get through to him. So I really went after character. Obviously, you look at the athleticism, you look at the ability, you look at the skill level, you look at some of the intangibles and toughness. But you also have to look at character and how a kid was brought up. And so that was really important to me. And the guys that I had the most success with and really built up a relationship, even in a short time, were guys that had that. They had that foundation. One of my favorite recruits, I was talking to him just the other day, and he's got some great schools recruiting him. And he said, hey, what do you really think? And I said, let me take a look at it, and I'll get back to you. But his mother, Parents are divorced, but mother and father still are raising them, which I think is really, really important in today's age. I think we know the statistics and what they mean when a kid doesn't have a father in his life or doesn't have a mother. And obviously there's some things you can't control. But I think that's the first thing I looked at when I was dealing with the player. And some kids, they come from single parents, they come from grandparents raising them, but they have a foundation into what they believe in, what they're about. I think that was really important for me. And I tried to do that the best I could when I was a head coach at San Francisco, because those are the guys that could take coaching and they wanted to get better. And they understood the value of the education they were going to get at a place like San Francisco or Wake Forest. I thought that was really important because, like I said, I didn't want to get the commitment. I didn't want to get the signing. I wanted to get them to graduate and do something they love to do when they're done playing. And part of that, when I say done playing, that meant after college too. We wanted to help them achieve or have a chance to play once they're done playing. So I tried to the best I could, and I wasn't always successful. But I tried to look out as far out as I could and say, hey, what's this guy's potential? What's his ceiling? And can we help him get there? And so, sometimes you get information that's not actually necessarily accurate, but you got to do the best job that you can do for that individual as long as you're with them. So that's what I try to do in the recruiting process. And that's what I try to do in the coaching process as well.
Now, I enjoyed the fact that you coached the Grand Rapids Drive for a year, their first winning season. And my wife is from Grand Rapids. My wife and actually kids are out there right now. What was it like coaching players that were still pursuing the dream? And I've heard that guys in the G League overseas, that either they're coming off the end of the career, they're just have already peaked, or they're just missing something. Was it kind of like putting together a puzzle working with those players in the G League?
Well, first of all, they were great players. I think the G League, if you took the G League and you brought them down to college, they would be competing for championships. Any one of those teams. There's very good coaches and there's very good players. There were some challenges, of course, because you're dealing with a lot of different things. You're dealing with high level players with high level skill and high level intelligence. So that means you got to be on your game as a coach as well. And you're trying to help them achieve their goals again. And you're doing it in a very short window of about 6 months. But that was our whole thing with them is we felt like if we could help these guys understand, number one, what organizations are looking for are guys that do what it takes to win. And so that's the first message we wanted. And we also said to our guys, if we do that, you're going to create a better situation for yourself after the season's over. We want our guys to be invited to Summer League. We want our guys to be given opportunity to play overseas. We wanted our guys to give the opportunity to make more money, because we all know the NBA or the professional lifespan is very, very short.
Sure.
And so I took that as a big challenge to help our guys. And when I say help them, it wasn't always the help they wanted, but I wanted to tell them the truth. I wanted to be organized in the things that I was trying to do as a coach and we did as a coaching staff to put them in the best situation possible so they can move on from our place and help them achieve their goals financially and in terms of their career. So that's how I challenged it, but it was a challenge. Your roster changes constantly. You're getting guys coming down from the Pistons. You're getting guys that are moving on because they get 10-day contracts. Mm-hmm. But what you got to do is you got to have a great backbone and belief in what you're doing, how you're going to teach it, and again, to help our guys put themselves in the best situation. And the first part of that was by putting together a winning effort every single night. That puts every single guy in a better situation, because in professional sports, we all know organizations do a lot better when they win. So I wanted organizations to see our organization or our players as guys that do what it takes to win and be successful on the basketball court.
Now, Rex, you had some phenomenal coaches. You had, of course, Roy Williams at Kansas, Chuck Daly with the Nets, and then Pat Riley, Hall of Famers when you were with the Heat. What was that experience like for you? What did you learn from them most that you still utilize today?
You take bits and pieces from each of them. They're all so phenomenal. Roy Williams was just how much he cared his organization at the college level. He got guys to really buy in and play together and play for the common good, which was a thing for me. I was a guy that wanted to score and wanted to get a lot of shots up and wasn't all that crazy about the defensive side of the ball. Well, he helped me in all those areas. So that was the biggest thing from him. From Chuck Daly, The way he managed egos, the way he was a psychologist with his players and get the most out of them that way. I thought that was something I really needed, and I took a lot of things away from him from the defensive side in terms of terminology. Pat Riley was the best motivational speaker I've ever been around. There's no question that he had a system in place that he believed in, and he taught it at a high level. And so, being around those three were phenomenal. And then, I got a chance to work for Stan Van Gundy, who should be in the Hall of Fame. He's the most organized, detailed coach I've ever been around. And in terms of, and I got to see a different side, because I didn't get to see that side from Coach Williams, Coach Daly, Coach Riley, but Stan let me see the curtain was kind of drawn up, and I could see all that was put into coaching, which I think really helped me when I was with the Pistons working for him.
So you can ask Stan Van Gundy about his experience coaching in Vermont. I think it was only a year, but he actually coached at a small school here in the great state of Vermont, the basketball hotbed that Vermont is. But you were able to make it to a Final Four. And I have to say, in interest of full disclosure, growing up in Vermont, when you're in fifth grade and you pick a team, I didn't know who to pick. My parents didn't play basketball or follow or anything like that. So I knew I had lived in North Carolina. So ever since fifth grade, I've been a big Tar Heel fan. Roy Williams, Dean Smith, what was that relationship like when they were both in the Final Four together? Do you remember anything about that?
Great respect, especially from Coach Williams towards Coach Smith. Spent a very small amount of time ever being around Coach Smith, but there was an unbelievable, everything that we did at Kansas really mirrored what Coach Williams learned from Coach Smith. I know Coach Williams didn't like playing North Carolina because of the respect he had for Dean Smith in that program and all that he had done for Coach Williams. The game was very difficult because we ran a lot of the same stuff. It was going to come down to who was going to be tougher on that given night. And they were tougher on that given night and came away with the W. But I know Coach Williams and Coach Smith were great friends. I know there was a love there and the utmost amount of respect that Coach Williams has for Dean Smith. So I know that was a difficult time for him because they beat him 2 years earlier in '91. They beat him to go to the national championship. And then 2 years later, they got us in a little bit of a rubber match. But I know Coach Williams never enjoyed going against his mentor and a person that he really looked up to.
So you had that transfer year in between Northwestern and Kansas. How difficult was that for you not being able to play, or did you just take it in stride and preparing for what some would say is a higher level of basketball than being at Northwestern?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing was it was a totally different mindset going from Northwestern to Kansas. When you go to Kansas, you're there to win Big 8 or Big 12 championships. You're there to compete on a national level. Northwestern was still trying to find themselves as a program and what they were really about. Kansas, when you go to Kansas, you sign up to try to beat the best. And so that was different. There was also, for me, a difference in terms of sharing the basketball, in terms of playing on the defensive end. And it was a tremendous challenge for me. It was very difficult. And they were a very good team in the year that I sat out. If I would have played on that team, we might have been able to help them get over the hump because they lost to Duke in the national championship game. But I used it as a time to really get better, and I think I made a big jump in my overall game, but also my body started to catch up with some of my skill set, and I became more athletic, more dynamic in terms of what I could do on the basketball floor in the air, and that definitely helped me. But Coach Williams was a big part of that. It was a big challenge. And there were days that were very, very difficult. But for whatever reason, I was able to get through and then have a pretty good year the season after that.
How tall are you?
6'2.5".
Would you have liked to play in today's NBA where a little bit more freedom, a little bit more space to get your shots up?
Wow, that's a good question. The game, there's no doubt in my mind the game is evolved. And there is more shooting. There's better ball handling. There's better passing. Yes, I would love to have played that game, but I also would have loved the benefit of all the technological advances as well, and all of those things. But, yeah, it would have been fun. I think the biggest thing, the most important thing that I would have enjoyed when I got to the NBA level was, having a coach. Like Coach Williams pushed me really hard, and I earned his respect. I was never able to overcome that at the NBA level. And so I was a solid NBA player, not a great one. But I think a lot of that, some people can play in any system. You know, Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, they can play in any system. You can play fast, play slow, run sets, or not. You know, I was a player that probably needed the right type of system to really be the player that I wanted to be, and it just never really happened. But had a great run, learned a lot, played for a lot of great coaches, and met a lot of great people along the way. So that was really a blessing.
Hey, let's go back a little bit. The Final Four, what was it like coming out of that tunnel? How much preparation did you have just practicing and seeing? Were you overwhelmed by the noise? What was that experience like for you?
Well, number one, the jog to the court was so much farther. You know, you're playing in the Superdome. So the jog was so much farther. The other thing that was a little different, we had a little bit of experience. We played in the Hoosier Dome to play Indiana. And when you play, it's funny. When you're playing in a regular stadium, right, your depth perception isn't nearly as affected. And that's the one thing I really found out quickly. When you play in a dome, your depth perception is different. Now, you get used to it, but it just takes a little while. So that was something that was a little bit different. The crowd, that didn't really have much of an effect. I mean, we wanted to win a ball game. We needed to put together. And quite honestly, Carolina had probably the biggest impact on me because they really were a physical team, tough, big, made everything difficult. But in terms of the atmosphere, or the crowd, that not so much. The depth perception at first, and then Carolina, they were pretty good.
So, Rex, if you could answer this best you know how, why did you have a better NBA career than Donald Williams?
Well, I was a little bit taller than Donald. Donald's probably a better shooter, to be honest. Donald was a phenomenal shooter, great player, and more of a two guard, whereas I could play both positions. That might have helped me a little bit. You know, I really don't know. I have the utmost amount of respect for his game, and he was literally the best player on the court that night, and it pains me to say that. But he played the best on that particular night, and for whatever reason, it didn't translate, or he didn't get the opportunity in the NBA. I think size is a big thing in the NBA. You don't see a lot of, and I was an undersized two at 6'2.5". Donald was a little bit smaller than me. That might have affected him. But he could put the ball in the hole, and it was going to take, as it needed for me, it would take the right system, the right coach to really show what he can do. But I know he had a great career. I know he's coaching. I saw him this past year recruiting in North Carolina, and great player, and had a great career. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily translate, or more importantly, he's not given the opportunity, right, to really play at that level. And I don't know why that was, but he was a phenomenal player.
What are your thoughts on kids leaving college early?
That's a tough one. I mean, I'm all about freedom. You see kids playing tennis when they're 14, 15, 16 years old at the professional level. You see baseball players getting drafted out of high school. You know, it happens. Hockey, they grow up in a system. When you talk about being overseas, kids become part of organizations before they've, gone into college. Yeah. So I do think there's a maturity standpoint. I think that me being in college for 5 years helped me. That doesn't necessarily translate to everyone else. I think that there's a lot of things from a maturity standpoint. Basketball is different than tennis, but it's very similar to baseball. You're on your own. You're traveling a lot. Baseball is probably a lot tougher, to be honest with you. But, there's going to be good stories about it. There's going to be bad or tough ones. I think the one negative, and the way I tried to approach it when I talked about college, was it's an unbelievable insurance policy that you're going to get a great education from a great school that's going to set you up for life once you're done playing. From high school going to the NBA, you've just eliminated that. You're going to have to do that on your own now. You're going to find a way to get your education, which I think is really, really important. But then it also, if it doesn't work out, it's going to be much more dramatic for you in this real world. But there are guys that no question can do it. There's no question they're more than ready physically, maybe not ready mentally. I think the organization has to do a great job of surrounding him. It's kind of like the same way you raise a kid. You raise them with community. I think a whole organization has to really put their arms around. I think with Kobe, I think the Lakers, to the best of my knowledge, really surrounded him with good people. I think your family structure is really important too. So there's a lot of things that go into making it as an NBA player. I think that those things are definitely sped up, or definitely you can find more reasons why a guy doesn't make it when he comes out of high school, when he doesn't have some of the things in terms of just maturity, knowing who they are, knowing how to make it, as an individual. But you see guys like Tracy McGrady, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, they've been able to do it. So it's hard for me to say that that's not something that guys shouldn't do.
And as you said before, professional sports careers do not last as long as Vince Carter. They're much shorter, and it's something that I think students need to weigh more as well. Hey, so Adonis Jordan and yourself, you made for a lot of fun to watch, a great backcourt. But I do know, playing a little bit of basketball, sometimes there's run-ins. Sometimes when you're playing similar positions or you're both in the backcourt, things don't go as planned. How did that chemistry grow? Did you guys naturally have it, or did you have some bumps along the road?
Oh, I think you have to have bumps on the road. You have to have good times and bad. That the bad probably bonds you just as much as the good. So we definitely had moments where we didn't see eye to eye. We would have some discussions. We'd have some talks about it. We played pickup against each other. When you're not on the same team, you're playing against each other. But I think the biggest thing you got to have a common respect. Then you have to have a common goal of what you're trying to get accomplished. And I think, and I'm talking about a team goal. I'm not talking about an individual goal. We both had a common goal that, we want to compete and try to win a national championship. We want to win a Big 8 championship. We want to compete and beat the best teams in the country. So when it came to that, there was really nothing to argue about. It was just about how we were going to do it and how we needed to come together to get those things accomplished. So I enjoyed my time with Adonis. I'm not going to sit here and say that we always got along, but at the end of the day, we had a common cause and common purpose. We were both going to work really, really hard to achieve it.
Rex, can you just share that story when you found out you made it to the NBA?
Well, yeah, I was at home. My local newspaper didn't have me going to the first or second round. Basically, I'm half Japanese, so a lot of my friends that I grew up with playing in the Asian leagues came over my house. They watched the living room. I watched in my mom and dad's bedroom because I didn't want them to see my face. And we got around. And once we got around, 13, 14 picks, I knew that my number could be called. And then I got a phone call really briefly just saying, hey, be ready. It's going to happen. And with the 16th pick, I was drafted by the New Jersey Nets. I got another phone call where I got to talk to the great Willis Reed, got to talk briefly with Chuck Daly. And then, pretty quickly after that, I was on a flight out to New York to play in Summer League. So it was right to business after I got drafted.
So a couple of spots right there. You were called landline phone. I assume you didn't have a cell phone back then.
Yeah, no, it was a landline phone. I ended up buying a car that it was a car phone, which to me made no sense because you're in the car for 15 minutes if you're driving to go to a workout. But I did buy a car with a car phone. I had a pager for a short time after I was drafted, which again made no sense. I don't know. I just did it because that's what people were doing. But yeah, it was a landline, and that was a very exciting time for me.
So I say this tongue in cheek. Don't call me a smart ass for saying this, but you've also had great hair when you played. How long did it take you to get your hair ready before you go out and take the court?
It's really funny. It's pretty easy. I try to keep it as short as possible. I like to call it my wake up and wear look. But yeah, I put a little water on it, put a little gel. When I was at Northwestern, I got a lot of criticism. I'd cut my own hair and I'd get the clippers out, and it was bad. It was bad. It got a little better when I got to Kansas. Lucky enough that my wife liked me enough that she would marry me, dealing with the old wake up and wear look.
And so I coached junior high basketball. There was a kid, lefty. He was really good. I mean, again, it's junior high basketball in Vermont, so it's not stellar. But he would always get 3 or 4 shots off, usually in the first half, without guys realizing that he was left-handed. How did you use that to your advantage? When did you learn it was an advantage?
I learned it pretty quickly. My dad would always jokingly call me Ken Stabler. Ken Stabler was a left-handed quarterback. But I realized quickly that guys were not used to sliding going to their left. They were much more used to playing against righties, and it was definitely an advantage for me. I think also driving the basketball, if I was a right-hander, right, some of those shots that people expected weren't there because I was finishing with my left hand to the inside, especially when I was going right. I would finish with my left hand to the inside to get it off a lot quicker. So there was definitely some advantages being a lefty, and especially, high school, even college at pros, they kind of figure things out a little bit. Okay. Yeah. They're pretty good and they figure things out a lot quicker, but there was definitely an advantage in high school and college. Going left, driving left, coming off screens where guys aren't used to you, getting that shot off from that side of your body.
Talk about your first NBA game. What do you remember?
Wow. Oh, probably sitting the bench. I know, but the first game, the first time for first exhibition game, the Nets would always like to try pull pranks against you. So they like rookies lead. Rookies, they lead us out on the court. So sure enough, me and PJ Brown and David Wesley, we're all running on the court, and then we look back and none of the team is out there. So just stupid little pranks like that. I just remember that as a rookie. They got me once. I do remember that. But playing for Chuck Daly was great. We had a really good team, a playoff team. They had lost Drazen Petrovic, which was a big loss for that organization. And then I was just trying to find my way. That's the biggest thing. When I got to the NBA, I was trying to find my way and trying to form some type of niche that I could really have an impact for my team and carve out a career for myself. That's really what I was trying to do, even as a rookie.
What memorabilia did you keep from the NBA teams you played on?
I have some, like we're in a move right now, so I'm seeing a lot of stuff that we had. We had a box of uniform. I didn't look in it, but I know I've got some Heat stuff. I know I put a couple things in a framed uniform. Yeah. I did that more for recruiting, just so kids know. But the funny story is, my last year in Miami, I was number 3. So and when I framed it, I put it up in my office, and it was a Miami 3 jersey. I should have done the flip side, and it would said Walters, but people would have said, like, what do you have a red jersey for? So kids would come to my office all the time. They're like, Coach, I don't get it. Are you like a big Dwayne Wade fan? What's going on? And I was like, no, that's actually my jersey. I was number 3 for the Miami Heat my last year. So, but no, I do keep some stuff. I just don't know where it is. Not all of it. And I do have some framed jerseys, but that's more for like recruiting. So it gives me some, street credibility with the kids nowadays.
Hey, so you have 5 kids. Your son playing collegiate basketball. What's that experience like, being a dad, being a fan, coaching him along the way? How much distance do you ensure that you make between, or did you, between his career and not overcoaching, but just being a dad?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I think with each kid, you get a little bit better as a parent.
Yeah.
With 5 kids, I'm a lot different than I am with my oldest daughter compared to my youngest son. So, that's something, there should be more courses on parenting, in college. There should be more studies on that and more books to read. But it was hard. It was hard. He had the same name that I had. We were both Rex, which I called him Drew, but so now he has to deal with that. He has to deal with the footsteps, and people would recognize my name a little bit. But I thought he did a phenomenal job, and got to college, got to play a little bit, and now he wants to concentrate more on the coaching side. But it was hard. It was hard, and I coached him a little bit, and my father coached me a little bit, and he coached me hard, and each kid and each person is different. So you got to figure out what works for their personality, their mindset, and how they look at things. So it's been something that I loved watching him play. All my kids, I love watching I had a daughter that played Division I, just finished her career. I've got 3 sons that play basketball. And I had another daughter that was a gymnastics, very good gymnast. So, but I enjoyed watching them. And with the gymnast, it was the easiest. I had no idea what was going on. I could just cheer and clap, and then I could get mad at the judge if they didn't give her a good score. But even then, I had to stay quiet because gymnastics is a little different than the basketball court.
Oh, that's so good, Rex. A couple more questions, then I'll get you out. Thanks so much for making the time, especially when you're in the middle of a move. And As I mentioned before, the Real Talk Basketball with Rex Walters podcast, I've been enjoying that. You have great connections, great guests coming on. But just referring to the Jason Williams podcast, which I'm going to ask the listeners to go listen to, who was the best player that you played with in the NBA?
It's a tough one. The three that stick out in my head, one would be Allen Iverson, and he was really young at that time. But you could see how good he was going to be. And just number one, the unbelievable athleticism, the unbelievable toughness, and will to win that he had. Those were phenomenal things. And he was just still kind of in his infancy, finding himself as a player. Then I got a chance to play with Alonzo Mourning, who is the ultimate warrior. He was the ultimate warrior when I was in Miami. Never backed down from anybody or anything, and had an unbelievable work that really set the tone for the kind of work that was needed to compete at a high level. And then Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway was a phenomenal player, made so many big shots, made so many big plays, had such a great mindset and toughness about him. Those three would but I played with a lot of great ones. Jamal Mashburn was a great player. PJ Brown was a great teammate. In Philadelphia, we had Derek Coleman, who was a phenomenal player. Kenny Anderson, phenomenal player. So I was really blessed to be around great players, because you learn. I think you learn as a coach when you watch good players. You pick up things and watch things, and hopefully you can kind of teach some of those things if you really break it down to the players that you get to coach.
Who were the best mentors? Were they the role players? Were they the veterans? Were they the best players? Who were the best mentors for you when you made it to the NBA?
Rick Mahorn was a great mentor for the whole team. Rick had championship pedigree, really understood the league and how it worked. He knew people and he knew referees, and just understood what it took to win, and would call guys on stuff. So, he was a great mentor to all of us. I had good friends too that maybe not mentors, but PJ Brown was a great friend. We came into the league together. He had a lot more success than I did, but he always was so grounded in everything that he did. So he was a great teammate that I had. So I'm blessed to have a lot of good people that I got to spend time with.
Now, when you first entered the league, were you married?
No, I was not. We got married my second year in the league.
How did you stay focused that first year? Did the NBA, did the Nets have something set up for you, or was it just learn trial and error?
Well, I think back then it was a different NBA. Didn't have the video stuff, didn't have a lot of them, didn't have as big a staff as they have now. I think that they did their homework on me. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do drugs. I made really good decisions. I was pretty much basketball. When I was at Kansas, it was basketball. And it was really in this order. I hate to say it. It was basketball, it was school, right? And then it was social. And social was a very small part of it, because I couldn't do the first two good if I was out all the time doing the social. So I think that was kind of understood about me. So that first year, I was trying to find myself and trying to figure out a way to find a niche in the league. So it was still the same. It was just without the school. It was now basketball, it was practice, basketball, and then practice. It was really that. I didn't go out a whole lot. I didn't do a whole bunch. My future wife would come visit me a lot, and we spent a lot of time together. We ended up getting married. And that's kind of who I've always been. I've kind of always been a homebody, very comfortable being at home. I'm not a big social guy, so those things never really applied to me in terms of that being anything to be worried about, off the court.
So when you married your wife, if I was to ask her or interview her, would you say she enjoyed the fact of being married to an NBA player, or did it have some difficulty as well?
I think she would. We loved that life. We loved both playing and coaching in the NBA. We loved it. It was really good people, different people from different backgrounds. You get to learn a lot. I wish I would have learned more about my teammates, but really good people. It's a great lifestyle. We lived in great places. We could travel. We had money at a young age. We're able to kind of put a lot of that money away for our future and our future children. But challenges. I mean, when you are an NBA player, there's going to be social things or people that you have to be a little bit leery of, both from the male and female side. That was something that at times she might have been concerned about, but I think she really knew me. So she loved it when I coached in the NBA as well. It was a great life and a great lifestyle. It's a fantasy world a little bit, but it's something, if you can stay grounded, it's something that would be a lot of fun.
So those listening cannot see, but maybe they've heard me share it before. I am not Caucasian. I'm actually Korean. And I love the fact how you brought out your mom is Japanese, and so you are biracial. You are Asian. You were before Jeremy Lin. I know people that weren't trying to be racist. They were just making jokes about, oh, Jeff, are you going to get the Yao Ming jersey? And I was so happy when Jeremy Lin did well, because I was like, hey, I don't have to be a 7-footer, but I should have known. I've always could have got a Rex Walters jersey. How difficult was that for you, being biracial? Did it come up? How often did it come up?
It really didn't, because I don't look half Japanese. Most people are really surprised when they meet my mother and see my mother at my games. They didn't know, but it was actually an advantage for me, because I grew up in the Asian leagues in California, and so every Friday night I was practicing. Every Sunday or Saturday I was playing in games. So it was, and back then, the Japanese American community, they really taught the fundamentals. It was a really important thing that they stressed in the practices, in the games, and it made me a better player. So with my teammates, it never came up, very rarely. Only time it would is when we played against Golden State or played against Sacramento, and they saw my mother. They saw my mother in the stands, or they saw my mother, me talking to her after the game. And so there was really never any issue, but I don't look Japanese. So it never really came up.
So let's talk about the NBA right now, getting started, playing in a bubble, no fans. How would you have gotten yourself motivated if there were no fans in the stands?
I like to play. I mean, I like the reason I probably stuck around the league as much as I did is because I like to practice, and I competed in practice. And back then you practiced. It's not like today where there's so much, I don't know what the word is, but yeah, they save their players for the games. But that's what allowed me to stay around. So that wouldn't bother me. If you love playing, you love playing. I think the biggest issue is going to be for the NBA about who's going to be the champions, who's going to be healthy. Yeah. Who's going to be able to mentally, physically be healthy enough to get through this time, being in the bubble, being away from family, who can handle that, and who's available. Like if you look at the Lakers, I did a video on Avery Bradley. He's not with them, right? And if they lose a Danny Green, that's two of their best perimeter defenders on their team that can cause a lot of problems for their opponents defensively, and they don't need the ball. I think that's going to be the biggest thing with this restart. As you look at it, who's going to be healthy, who's going to remain healthy, who's available to play and help a team get through the playoffs and get to a championship run.
So you're not a believer in J.R. Smith? You don't have to answer that.
J.R. Smith's a great player, and he brings great shooting, but also he's not going to replace what Avery Bradley can do from the defensive side of the ball. Can he and Dion Waiters offset that offensively? Yes, but there's one thing that I know about basketball is defense translates. You can always sit down, guard, and make it difficult for teams. You can't always depend on jump shots to go in. So when you have someone like Avery defending their top on ball, with the ball offensive player, that takes a lot of pressure off LeBron. It takes a lot of pressure off Anthony Davis. It takes a lot of pressure. And then you got Danny Green. Well, now half of that is gone when you lose a guy like Avery Bradley. So that I'm not saying that they can't do it, but it makes things more difficult. And then mentally, who can handle being in the bubble for that long? Because there's going to be a situation where the consolation, right, for not winning or getting knocked out is you get to go home. You get to go see your family, right? So that's different. So who's going to fight through that, right, to really make a championship run, as opposed to who's going to give in? A lot of times in a basketball game, it's not going to come down to size, strength, athleticism. It does a lot, but at some point, it's going to come down to who wants it the most or who's going to give in first. When all things are equal, and so you will find out that stuff with this restart.
Oh, that's so true. Rex, you can find him on Instagram, Coach Rex23, also on Twitter, Coach Rex Walters. 2 questions, then we'll let you go. Thanks again for making the time, and we wish you all the best. And for jobs to open up for you this coming year. The question is, I am nervous about, I say this tongue in cheek as well, with the NBA, that the videos are going to pick up more of the language coming from these players. But I do think it's going to be kind of like AAU basketball, like high AAU basketball, or it's going to just be like playing in the park where you have guys out there that get competitive and really play. And I think it'll reveal the players that are kind of just doing it because they got paid, or I think some of the real basketball junkies are going to come out during this NBA playoff season. Would you agree?
Well, I think the one thing with the language, hopefully they're on tape delay. Hopefully they're on tape delay, so producers can buzz it out or whatever. I think the coaching is so good in the NBA, and the players are so good. I was surprised how well, and I could see offense even in the scrimmages. So I think the product will be pretty good. I think there's going to be some moments like, Jacques Vaughn is a great guy. I consider him a friend. He's coaching the Brooklyn Nets. They've been like just completely stripped of their talent. Yeah. KD didn't play the whole season. Kyrie's not playing. Like, they're missing multiple guys. That's a really tough situation. So yeah, like, you're going to see some of that with some of these teams, but for the most part, I think you're going to see in the playoffs some great basketball. Something I think we need. I think something I need selfishly to be able to watch games and to again appreciate all that they can do. And I think the NBA has done a phenomenal job so far, and I hope it works, because if it doesn't, I'm really worried about college athletics. I'm really worried about the other pro sports. I'm worried about our educational system, sending kids back into school. Yeah. So if the NBA can get through this, it sends a message that it can be done if we're responsible, if we handle our business the right way, and we can really get through this COVID virus right now, because it's a crazy time. It really is. And hopefully the NBA can give us some better sense of hope that we can get through this, and also just get us away from the daily grind of just being home all day.
Well, I agree. And hey, so if you were going to be featured in a movie, would you want to play the hero or the villain?
I'd like to play the hero that's got a little bit of a dark side.
There you go. And then I stole this from Hernando Planos. He's a great coach, does a lot of things. And he always asks at the end of his podcast, if or when there's a feature film made about you and your life, which actor do you want to play yourself?
Oh gosh, it has to be someone with a big head. Shoot. Ben Affleck's got a big head. That's the only qualification right now. Is do you have a big enough head, right, that kind of looks like the size of my head? That's really the only, I don't think I'm as good looking as him and all that, but he's got a big head, and so do I. So maybe he qualifies.
Well, see, I always say The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. Not that we look anything alike, but man, if it's going to be about me, let's bring out the best. And the second part of this question that gets me in trouble a little bit, not as much with my wife because I've asked it so often. She just is tired of telling me not to ask it. Okay. Who would play your wife in that feature film? So across from Ben Affleck, who would be playing their love interest?
Well, if I'd kick Ben out, right? Number one would be my wife, but after my beautiful wife Deanna, Kate Beckinsale, or let's see, Rachel McAdams. She'd be good. All people that have that great personality and style of my wife is what I would say.
Yeah. So I always go with Halle Berry. So my wife is 5'10" from Grand Rapids, Michigan. She is Dutch. And so, hey, Halle Berry and Dwayne Johnson playing my life.
There you go. That'd be good.
Hey, Rex, thank you so much for making the time. We do. We love the fact that you made time for us, because I believe that people's stories make our story much better. And what you said over and over, just to listen from others, it's a life lesson that we need to take more advantage of. So thanks so much for doing it today.
No, thank you for having me, and best of luck with your shows. This is really pretty cool. You've got some high level production value going on here that's way ahead of me. Way ahead of me. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks so much. Again, that's Rex Walters making some time. Real Talk Basketball with Rex Walters. That's his podcast, Real Talk Basketball with Rex Walters. I can't talk right now. Jay Fuller Interviews on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Jay Fuller Interviews. And the Backfire Podcast on Spotify. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. I got to get some water so I can talk more clearly. All right. We'll catch you later. Thanks, guys.